Today on The Sam Alex Show, Larry the Cable Guy.
And the guy in the banana is skinny. I'm not skinny. I mean, how do they think I'm in the banana suit?
On his iconic animated movie role.
I called my manager and I said, well, when do I have to audition for this? And they said, you don't. You got the part.
The meaning of his trademark phrase.
I said, all right, fellas, well, let's get her done. They go, what's that mean? And I said, I have no idea, but whatever you do, you gotta get her done.
Plus,
a lot of people spend $50,000, $60,000 on a wedding. It won't have as good of memories as the one that we had for $140.
all ahead on The Sam Alex Show. Larry the Cable Guy has a new special called Remain Seated. Larry, how you doing? You're seated right now. I love this.
I know I am doing. I'm doing all right. You know, just kicking back with my family and doing these call-ins, promoting my special. I'm trying to find a spot where you don't got any glare on you, but this is about the best spot I got right here. So you know, it's funny. Everybody always thinks that I'm the banana in The Masked Singer, and Jenny McCarthy already said. It's not me when they're guessing. She goes, no, I work for the guy. That's not me. And I got to tell you, the guy in the banana is skinny. I'm not skinny. I mean, how do they think I'm in the banana suit? It's ridiculous.
Have you known Jenny McCarthy for a while?
Yeah, Jenny was in my my movie Witless Protection way back in 2008. So I've known her. She's really awesome. We got along great, and she's a lot of fun. And we both have shows on Sirius Satellite too. So.
Right on. But when are you going to have a sequel for that movie? I love that film.
I am probably not going to have one. You know what? It was fun. I enjoyed that. It was Ivana Milicevic was my co-star, who's been in a ton of stuff, and she was so awesome.
So I heard your wife's in the other room doing an interview. What is she promoting?
My wife writes books, so she does interviews about her, but she writes Christian devotionals. And so she's got a book deal.
Is she originally from Nebraska like you are? Did you know each other growing up?
My wife's from a small town in northern Wisconsin, and a town of 45 people. I was from the big city. I was from a town of 1,200 people.
Okay.
So I grew up raising pigs, and she grew up raising cows, and I met her backstage in Las Vegas when she was working at a radio station, and they were promoting my show, and I just met her back there. And once I found out about her country background, we just hit it off and got married a year later.
And did you get married in her hometown in Wisconsin?
No, we got married at my house here in Nebraska. There was 7 people at our wedding. We got married on my fishing dock over my pond. And she was wearing cutoff shorts and a Leonard Skinner shirt, and I was wearing camo shorts, camo hat, camo Husker hat, cut a sleeveless shirt. We got married, and the judge got a bloody nose right in the middle of the sermon. And as soon as we kissed the bride, my buddy let off an M80 and took out about 20 feet of beans, and then we went down and to another town, bought firecrackers and reheated lasagna. It's a wedding that I will never forget. A lot of people spend $50,000, $60,000 on a wedding, but I guarantee you it won't have as good of memories as the one that we had for $140.
And what do you do for a honeymoon? I mean, how do you top that wedding?
I know, right? There wasn't much of a honeymoon. The honeymoon was pretty much getting on the bus and traveling around the country and doing shows. You know, I toured about 280 days a year living on a bus. My kids pretty much grew up on that bus for the first 5 years of their life. And I only do about 30 dates a year now. I've been kind of just kicking back at the house. I don't want to miss my kids growing up. And so we made the big decision the other day to put my tour bus up for sale and get rid of my tour bus. because I pretty much fly at all my shows now. So that's going to be a big step in my life. I always hate change. I'm kind of a hoarder. I like all the memories, but you know, I'm going to sell my bus, but it just kind of stinks. You know, my kids grew up on it, but it doesn't make any sense sitting in a garage and not being used. So I'll probably sell it.
Are you like a musician where your face is on the side of the bus?
No, early on, we had like a little thing on the back, said "Get Her Done" on it, Larry the Cable Guy. But that was just those early days when you want to promote and get out there. Then once you hit it and you're top of your game and you're doing arenas, and you don't want to put your name anywhere on the bus because then you get followed in the bus.
Right.
So didn't do that anymore.
All right. Well, after the break, I want to talk more about your special Remain Seated that's coming up with Larry the Cable Guy.
I was going to homeschool my kids, and then my wife reminded me, we're idiots.
Larry the Cable Guy is our guest. The special is Remain Seated. Order LarryTheCableGuy.com and basically everywhere that you can buy great music and great stand-up specials. I love your one-liners. I love this special. I feel like the art of one-liners is going away, but thank you for still doing it.
Man, I'm glad you said that. You know, we don't get a lot of respect anymore, like Rodney used to say, you know, but it's a dying art and people think it's easy or hacky or whatever. But man, writing a good one-liner, there's nothing better. And to me, it's really what comedy's all about. It's comedy, it's laughs, it's setup, punch. It's all about timing and delivery. And I mean, that's a big part of the art of comedy.
Were you always doing one-liners and cracking jokes, or were you more into sports and just being outdoors and causing trouble?
Well, you know, I was always a funny kid. My dad was funny. My mom was funny. My brother's hilarious. My sister's funny. I was the only one that really pursued it as a career, but I came from a family that was funny. My dad was an entertainer. He was a preacher on Sundays, and he was a guidance counselor on the weekdays. And on the weekends, he was in a band called the Memphis Beats. Back in the 70s, probably one of the best country rhythm and blues rockabilly bands in the state of Nebraska back in the day. And so he did all kinds of stuff. So entertaining was always around. So it was just kind of formed, I guess, at an early age.
And what was the first time you did an open mic night or something where you were actually on a stage in front of people and you said, whoa, I should actually pursue this. I got something here.
Yeah, you know what? I got dared. My friends dared me. I used to work at a hotel, and I drove the hotel van, and all the airline crews thought I was funny. And they had a comedy night. Bars started holding comedy nights. And so instead of karaoke nights, they became comedy nights. And so my friends dared me to go on stage. And so I did. I mean,
And how old were you at this time?
This was 1985. So I was 22 years old.
And where were you living?
I was living in West Palm Beach, Florida. My dad had moved us down there
Okay.
when I was 15, 16. And so, yeah, I just went on stage. I almost backed out. If I would have backed out, I wouldn't be doing it today. So that's why I always tell people, if there's ever something that you ever wanted to do and you don't know if you can do it or not, at least give it a try one time so you'll never have that thing in your head. Man, I wonder what would have happened if I would have tried. So I didn't want that to happen. So I watched a couple. A buddy of mine said, well, you got to go up. All your friends came. So just watch the first couple of guys. If they're not that good, then go ahead up. What do you got to lose? And so the first couple of guys went up, and I thought, well, shoot, I'm funnier than those guys. That was when I got hooked, 1985. And I've been working to get better ever since.
Being on the stage kind of got you in the door to working in radio. And then from there, you're just kind of on your way and things were happening.
Did stand up, and then since I was a one-liner guy, radio stations loved it when I came on because, you know, they always needed something funny for 3 minutes, and radio really helped my character and what I do, you know.
In our next segment, we've got some fan questions for you with Larry the Cable Guy coming up after this.
And you never seen more cheap folks in your life than at a garage sale. Guy comes up, he says, how much is this? I go, $1. He goes, does it work? It's $1. What the do you work?
Larry the Cable Guy has a new special, Remain Seated, LarryTheCableGuy.com. And congrats to everything you do with the Get Her Done Foundation, donating over $7 million to various charities. So thank you for that.
Thank you. We couldn't do any of that without fan support. I think we're up to maybe about 9 million by now. That 7 million was a few years ago. This job has been so amazing, and being able to meet some cool people, and and then you talk to them and you hang out with them and you realize they're all just normal folks like anybody else. They just have different jobs.
Okay, rapid fire. We have some fan questions for you, Larry. Emma wants to know, how did the catchphrase "Get Her Done" come about?
You know what? When I was signing off on radio stations, I just said it. I have no idea. I mean, when I was a kid, we used to be in the truck with my grandpa, and he always used to say, let's get let's get her done up on the hill. And so I don't know, I just, one night, I called a radio station in 1991, and I signed off, and I said, all right, fellas, well, let's get her done. I go, what's that mean? And I said, I have no idea, but whatever you do, you gotta get her done. And it was funny, and everybody laughed. And so I called radio stations. I called radio stations for 13 straight years, 5 days a week. That's how that all started.
And White wants to know, what have you learned from Jeff Foxworthy?
Man, I've learned a lot from Jeff. Jeff always used to stay after and shake hands, and was always good to his crowds. And I'm the same as Jeff. I think Jeff and he's one of my best friends in the whole world, like my adopted brother. And I've always enjoyed people. And so I was always a people guy, because I was a bellhop. And so I did the same thing. So I learned from Jeff that you got to treat your fans good. If you treat your fans good, your fans will treat you good back. And then he also said that show business is 2 words. It's a show and it's a business. And you got to be good at both of them. And he always said that there's people that will always be funnier than me. But he said, but what I can do is I can make sure that nobody works harder than me. And I always kept that in mind, because you got to work hard at your craft, and you got to work hard at the business end of it. And generally it plays out for you pretty good if the talent's there.
I like that. All right, last question from Logan wants to know, how did you get the role of Mater in Cars?
It was a gift from God above. I was sitting at the house and I had a weekend off, and my manager told me to look in my fax machine. This was back in the old days when we had fax machines. And there was basically a letter from Pixar. I got it hanging on my wall right now. It's, if you would like, check this out. I was sitting at the house, and he told me to go to the fax machine. And sitting in the fax machine, can you see that?
Oh, yeah.
Sitting in the fax machine was that letter. And it said, we would like to offer you the lead role of Zeb, our small town tow truck. We are huge fans of your work and very excited by your interest in the role. I called my manager and I said, well, when do I have to audition for this? And they said, you don't, you got the part. And I'm like, holy smokes. And I honestly, I cried like a baby. I was so happy. I mean, all that hard work, it just paid off. It all culminated into that. All the years of calling radio stations, hoping for a break. And of course, they changed the name from Zeb to Mater, because John Lasseter met a guy that he really liked, and his nickname was Mater. So he honored him with the name Mater on his truck. But that's how I got it. John said he'd been through about 150 actors, 200 voiceover artists, and he could not find the voice. And then he went and got a Blue Collar Comedy CD at the last second. He said he had a day before he had to make a decision.
Wow.
And he'd heard of Jeff, but he never heard of us, me and Bill or Ron. And fortunately for me, I was the first guy on the CD.
You were the opener for the openers.
Yes. And he said in the first 3 jokes, he was doubled over laughing and said, I found my tow truck. So that's the whole story there. A complete gift.
Did you fly to LA to voice it, or how did that work?
I flew to Emeryville, and I met everybody, and they showed me around, and I talked to everybody, and they were all so cool, and so I didn't want to just not. So the Punchline in San Francisco gave me a weekend so that I could make some money on the weekend while I was working. All the Pixar people came out to the show, and the cool thing about my show was Steve Jobs came to the show, and I didn't even know who Steve Jobs was. And people were coming up, and they said afterwards, they said, "Man, that is so cool that Steve Jobs was here." And of course, they had to tell me who he was. And they said, he never goes out. You never see him out. So the fact that he came to the show is really cool for you. So I thought that was really, really something else.
Did Steve Jobs go up and introduce himself that night, or he just came in and went out?
He just came in and went out. I didn't know who he was. He was sitting with John Lasseter, and he was laughing pretty good. That
That's
I
awesome.
did, because I was making sure Johnny was laughing. And
Okay.
yeah, it was just cool. And then I did another show out there where his partner that left, Steve Wozniak,
Yeah.
he came and he came backstage and he hung out with me. And I mean, he was the coolest guy. You hear stories about all these people that live out in certain areas, and but man, everybody is really cool. Everybody's sweet and friendly, and so yeah, it was awesome.
Awesome. Yeah, I feel like with Wozniak, you would never know he's a billionaire. That's so cool. Just like a funny, regular guy.
Never know in a million years. He's a guy who worked hard, and he was smart, and he made a lot of money, and he's not a flaunter. It's kind of like me, I've done well in my life, but I've never, ever, nor has my wife ever, we never, we just dress normal, and I never really go nice anyway, so
Yeah.
it's like, forget about it.
I think Steve Jobs would always wear the same black turtleneck too. And same with like Mark Zuckerberg, always wearing a blue t-shirt.
Yeah.
Okay, coming up is our final segment. We're going to play a game of This or That with Larry the Cable Guy right after this.
I got on the trampoline the other day with my kids. I had 2 jumps, had to get off. I wasn't tired or nothing. I had to get a ladder to get my boy out of a tree.
Larry the Cable Guy has a new special. Check it out. It is hilarious. It is called Remain Seated. I was laughing the whole time. Before we get to This or That, Larry, what are you grateful for?
I'm glad you loved it, man. I'm glad you loved it. I'm grateful for my family, for my kids, the life that the Lord's given me, friends I've met along the way, just for my life.
Right on. Yeah, I love in your special how you say, it's so good to be here in Joliet. I'm from Illinois.
Yeah.
And then you say, you've never heard that line before.
I bet that's the first time you heard that.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't clap too loud. It's an old theater.
I love that stuff. And everyone in the crowd loved it. All right, This or That, rapid fire. Star Trek or Star Wars?
No, man, Star Wars. I mean,
Okay.
Star Trek's so iconic, though, but Star Wars had all the cool special effects.
Call or text?
Text.
We have a golf one here. Bump and run or a lob shot?
Oh, man. A beautiful lob shot.
Okay. Easier said than done.
Yeah.
Ozark or Tiger King?
I like Ozark better.
Okay. Lastly, weightlifting or Pilates?
Neither.
Okay. LarryTheCableGuy.com, the place to get connected. I'm on socials at Sam Alex Radio. The special is called Remain Seated. Larry the Cable Guy, thank you so much for being on the show. Really appreciate it. Go Cornhuskers.
Yeah, go Big Red. I'm glad you liked the special and thought it was fun. I think it's one of my best CDs I've ever done.